Hi there. Let's go over these new templating tools for Ableton Live. As you can see here, I've got this set up for the BBC Discover Orchestra, but you can use these tools with just about any instrument that accepts MIDI in. I personally use them with Kontakt myself. I don't use the Discover instrument professionally because it's just lacking in a lot of round robins and stuff, but it's free and it's an amazing tool if you're just getting started, and you can actually use it to make music for cartoons and mobile games and other things like that. You probably just want to add in some of your own drums or whatever. But anyway, okay, so let's jump right to it. The gist of these tools is the send and receive device, essentially like the head and the body. So first thing you want to do when you're creating your own template is drag in the send device, and then it names itself to MIDI in. It sets the monitor to in for you, which is convenient. Rule of thumb, if you need for some reason to remove the send device, it's best to just delete the entire track and then drag in a new one. So let's add in the receive device. You can see it sets the MIDI from automatically to the MIDI in track. And once you create the MIDI in track, it's best to just sort of set it and forget it. You can set arpeggiators and other effects, put them to the left of the send device. And if you want to use multiple different controllers, let's try that out. Let's say, input keyboard, input internal, yep, and then there. And we just select them all and we set their output to MIDI in. And then we can set the input to MIDI in to no input. And we could just group these and set this out of the way and set it and forget it. So, and you put your instrument to the right of the receive device here. Let's see, I've got my trusty _ the orchestra here, and that's the Kontakt instrument that I really love. I think it's really worth checking out if you want to do stuff professionally and you need to iterate very quickly and still want it to sound pretty good. I do recommend this product. Okay. So, and you can have, of course, as many receive devices as you want in your project. And notice that it automatically arms. So unless your track is armed, the receive device will not pull MIDI from the send device. Essentially, the send device captures the MIDI CC, bypasses the MIDI clips when you're recording, and it sends the CC into these dials. So you can see here that actually, let's just jump over to this template here so we can play some notes. And there's also a bonus tool here, the convert CCs. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's see, go over the main features of the send device. We've got this global auto arm. So by default, when I select these tracks with the receive device, it arms them. We can turn that off for all the receive devices here. So now we don't get that automatic arming. Of course, we can play MIDI notes and we're not going to hear anything on these tracks because they're not armed. So there we go. We've also got a global key switch section. Now this converts a knob or foot controller into an articulation switching, and these set the globals for all the receive devices. So unless you want to change it for all of them, just leave this section alone. We've got a tips on and off. This works globally for all the receive and even the CC tool device. So the receive device, essentially, we have all these dials and they record the automation from our knobs onto the timeline so that we can easily edit and see things. And when we move a clip, those move with it. Unless, of course, this is on. We have to remember that if this is orange, the automations will not move with the clip. So I have made that mistake many times. So this number box here sets the MIDI CC in for the dial and the MIDI CC out. So this only MIDI CC1 will control this knob or dial, and it will spit out CC1. We can change this to whatever we want. However, just note that this MIDI CC, this naming here, will not change to reflect. So these are set up to the MIDI CCs that most all orchestral instruments use by default. So you may not have to touch those at all. We've got MIDI CC 64 for our sustain pedals, CC1 for the mod wheel, 10 for panning, 7 for volume. The symphonic orchestra plugin uses MIDI CC 11 expression in tandem with CC1. So really you have to control both at the same time in order to get like a decent volume, in my opinion. So I didn't want to have to work two knobs at the same time. So I'm able to use this template tool to set, and on my controller, I've just got this, humble nano key wireless. I've got arbitrary knob CC assignments, so 20 through 27. So I wanted knob 27 to convert down to 1 and 11. So as you can see here, the from CC is whatever your knob is. The 2 is, of course, what it's going to spit out. You can stack multiple CC tools here. I could just make a duplicate of that and make this whatever I want it to be. On any subsequent conversion CC devices, you want to turn these off here so you don't get a bunch of stacking stuff through. Also, if you only want the converted ones to go through, just shut this one off here. If you don't want pitch bend for some reason, shut that one off as well. So now you can see when I move knob 27, it controls both 1 and 11. So let's play a note here. So a lot more expressive, in my opinion, when you're working both at the same time. Of course, you've got 2 automation lanes because of this tool. Most, that's a bit redundant. Most orchestral instruments I've used mainly rely on Mod Wheel 1 for most of the dynamics. So I'm not sure why they chose to do that with this particular tool. Again, this is a great free tool. I highly recommend it. You could still use it, again, to make professional music for many different applications, I think. So, okay, you can also select both of these. Like in the case of violins 1 and 2, we want to play them both. We just need to manually select any other, or arm any other tracks. And it's one thing that I want to add in the future so that with the auto arm on, if you select a bunch, they all automatically arm. My API skills are still budding, so there may be some bugs and weird quirks. Feel free to mention those in the comments for the maxforlive device page for this or this video's comments area, and hopefully I'll be able to figure out and fix them. Yeah, so again, only one send device per project, only one track called MIDI in. That is so the soloing function here will still work. So when we solo one of these, it also solos this, because if this one isn't soloed, when we're playing, we don't get any MIDI coming through there. Okay, so I think the only other section I really wanted to mention was this this key switching section. So essentially what this does, let me set 26 here. I turned off all others through. So one thing to note too is if these are both the exact same number, nothing will come through. So I can't just type 26 and 26 and it allow 26 to go through. It will essentially block at that point. So we have to turn this one on to get others to go through. And here's 26. You could see it is coming through and affecting the key switch. Let's open this up and have a look. So yeah, very useful if you want to have both hands free and you can use a foot controller or something, or if you don't want to do the key switching thing. Traditionally, it's using the lower keys on the keyboard. If you have a small keyboard like what I have, being able to use a MIDI knob to key switch is very, very, very useful. So, and also it automates it and saves it on the timeline for you that way, so you can edit it along with the notes. I think it's easier to see where the note is about to start and you can set the key switch change right before it versus having to drill down into the clip, scroll down. All right, let's scroll up here. All right, there's my key switches, and we can edit them that way. I think that is very time consuming. Personally, it's much easier to just have it all on the timeline here. Okay, so when recording, let me just record a phrase really quick, and I'm going to mention something. All right. Very, very machine gun sounding with this particular library. They didn't give you a mini round robin, so when composing, it's best to try to play a lot of different types of notes, so it'll sound more realistic for you that way. If we want to re-record just our knob movements here, we want to make sure that this overdub is set to on. And then let's hit record and moving up. That way we don't lose our notes. If we want to get rid of the notes while we play, we turn this overdub off and it will keep the knob movements unless we move the knob. So this is pretty standard behavior. You can see here it basically just recorded nothing, and I can just drag this back to get our notes back. Pretty standard method for the way Ableton just behaves in terms of automation and recording with this overdub. It's a very useful little feature here. If we want to just start over from scratch, of course, make sure this is not orange, and then we can just delete the whole clip that way. Very easy. So let's record a little phrase here with both of these. There we go. Super scary. Bad guy's about to jump out and kill someone. All right, so we can clean that up here. And as you can see, that was pretty quick and easy. Let's check out the violas. Right now we have some manipulation effects here. We want to put these to the left again of the receive device, or we could put some to the left of the send device. A note of thumb, just keep them to the left of these devices. So we can shut this off here. Let's see, device on, let's turn that off. And we've also got our articulation is set to, let's scroll down here. Actually, I should probably make this a little bit bigger, and let's set this back to a sustain. There we go. And it's very quiet because we've got 1 and 11 down low. So I'm going to hit record here. There we go. Just super depressing, scary. Okay, but you get the point. It's that easy to record stuff. And at this point, of course, we can hide our automations and select a section. We could duplicate this, open up automations again. And essentially, you know, with this template, we can have a lot of different cues in one project as long as we know how to keep our automations organized. So we call this Q2, Q1, and I usually put my movie file for whatever I'm trying to score above the MIDI, or you can put it below the MIDI, or you could group it in with the MIDI and just, you know, close that up and kind of keep that out of sight. However you want to set it up. Some people like to have this all the way at the bottom. I think it's most convenient at the top in my own opinion. So, but this template is pretty flexible and it's already set up for the Discovery library. I love to make more templates with, you know, different Kontakt libraries. However, I think that this, as I've shown, is easy enough for you to quickly set up because once you create one of these, you can right click, you can set as default MIDI track, and anytime you make a new MIDI track, it'll have these instruments and effects for you right there. Or you could group this and drag it in and save it as a rack preset and pull it in whenever you want. So that's about it, and hopefully this helps you get started. And of course, if there's any questions or comments, leave them in the description section for the video, and I'll do my best to answer or field those. So yeah, until next time, happy mocking up, happy sketching.